Welcome to another episode of the Bonsai Stuff podcast. Scott Martin from Bonsai Matsu. Appreciate and love your company as always. And in this episode of the podcast, I want to talk about compartmentalisation, both for our trees and also for us. Sometimes I hear stories that sound would make this sound like a true crime podcast where things go wrong, terribly wrong with trees, and it's how we can move on from that and get to the next point, take it as a learning curve, and keep moving forward. And I want to also talk about working some deadwood, because there's been a little bit of work lately where gins have been made, the dead branches, and just my approach and what I suggest or how I approach working on gins and how long I leave them, let them dry out and all that sort of stuff. Oh, and I also want to just reflect back to last week's podcast, which was the talk about the emergency action for spring when something goes wrong. One thing that I kicked myself after I hit the upload button on the podcast was to talk about fertilising and weak or trees with issues. Never fertilise a tree that's in damage. If something's gone wrong, if you're taking any of those steps that I talked about in the last episode, then the first thing that I would do would be to remove fertiliser completely, because fertilising, you may have fertiliser burn happening on some of that foliage as well. That could be part of the problem. So make sure you remove the fertiliser as much as possible. And again, it's one of the reasons I suppose I love the tea bag fertilising method, because when I want to turn on fertilising, I can just put a bag on there. When I want to stop it, I can just remove that bag and it's all done. There's no residue. I don't have to worry if there's anything left in the soil. A couple of waters and everything's basically gone. So that was a sort of an oversight from last time. But anyway, compartmentalisation for both our trees and for us, it's where I'm going to start this podcast. So let's get into it. When a tree, a tree in general, has an issue, like there's a zone or a particular point in the tree where there's been damage, what they'll do is they'll compartmentalise or just lock off that area. All right, they'll make it that it's an area where the damage has occurred. They've agreed that hey, that's not good for the tree, but for the greater good of the whole tree, let's contain it. Let's lock it into a certain area within that tree, and then the tree starts to work around it. So the tree's not going to be wasting a lot of energy on this. It creates a barrier, an internal barrier around that point, locks it away, and moves on. So I really love that approach, that thought that trees do things for the greater good. Maybe it's their greater good, not our greater good, because them letting a branch die, that is one that we love, is common as well when trees get an issue and they start to have minimal resources to allocate around and they're slightly weaker. That's quite common, and often it's the lower branches that they let die off, so the upper branches can do what they do and grow nice and strong and healthy. And compartmentalisation, it varies based on the different type of tree that you're dealing with and how they handle it. It can be easier and better done with younger trees, and you see it a lot when you're looking at firewood. There might be an intersection of the tree that's sort of rotted out, and the trees continue to grow up and around that. I think that wound management, how we look after the wounds on our bonsai, can have a massive impact on this sort of a thing, and that's where that scratching the new bark, new cambium layer is it's a technique that I use for helping heal wounds, but it also can be used where we let the rot set in or the decay set in on parts of trees to create those beautiful natural hollows in trunks as well. So it doesn't always have to be perfect trunks. I've got a lovely liquid amber in my garden where I've got these cavities that I've worked on hard to have that wood rot away in the middle and get that nice beautiful natural roll of the bark. But from the tree's point of view, it takes an issue, an area, and it locks it away. And that's what I wanted to focus on with this. Not only is it a beautiful thing that the tree can do, but it's something that I think we can learn from as bonsai practitioners, as people who love these little trees, because when something goes wrong for us with our trees, we need to be able to lock it away. You can't make it the final nail that says, that's it, I'm not doing bonsai anymore. You simply have something go wrong. We look at it, we work out why it's happened, which is the most important part. Always that scaling back to say, okay, where did this come from? What was the original cause of the end result being, something terrible and horrible with our trees? But it doesn't mean that it's got to be the end of it. And I think I want to use the podcast to say we have to be able to get over it. The more of us, you love trees for a reason. You started doing bonsai, or you have bonsai around you for a very clear reason, that they make us feel good. We love it. That's whether it's the artistic side or it's horticultural or just being around trees in whatever environment that you've got. You might not have access to walk around a national park every second day because you live in the city. Might have a little balcony somewhere, and just having trees close to you is a good thing. It refreshes our soul. It makes us better people being around trees, pure and simple. So when something does go wrong, you need to be able to lock it away. Not make it the end of the road, but make it something that is just part of the bonsai journey that we go on. I love positivity. I love looking forward. I love the rearview mirror to help me work out what I've done wrong and how I can do it better going forward, and nutting things out, working out. I've always had a thing to know how things work, whether it's a machine or whatever it is, and that mechanical mind set for me is really important. Understanding the cyclical nature of machinery and how different parts work together. And trees and us, it's exactly the same. We have this process that we go through where sometimes, instead of being cyclical, it's just a stop point and we go, that's it, I can't do that anymore. And that definitely shouldn't be the way that you approach your bonsai. It should be something that you can stop, take heed of what it is, as hard as it is at the time. And I know I've been there so many times with trees where you put your heart and soul into them, and you probably love them too much. You overdo things a little bit too much with them, and then the end result is that you've got a tree that you're looking at going, why did that thing die? Why is it where it is now? What's gone wrong? Where's it gone terribly, horribly wrong for this tree and for me? And for me, I found personally, when I look back and thought long and hard about where I had my issues with bonsai, it was education. It was not knowing. And it's a different time and a different place now with access to so much information. Had someone, I got asked a question the other day, and you'll be listening to the podcast about a pot, about a chop. It's like, speak to such and such. And chuck it into AI online, and next thing the report comes back and it's extremely accurate. It's a lot of the grey area now is disappearing. It's becoming very black and white as to how things work in the bonsai world and where we can get our information. I still am extremely cautious about advice from anybody or anywhere or anything, and I always try and make sure that there's a massive asterisk on anything that gets given out, because it's very much environment based, based on where you are and how the world ticks where you are, and what the sun's like and the temperature and the rain and the wind and all those different environmental factors. They have an enormous part to play in advice and management of your trees. But I really want to just put a smile or put a positive spin on when something goes wrong. Be like a tree, compartmentalize it, work out what it is, put the barriers up and say, okay, well, that's not going to happen again, and try and make it that you take corrective steps to make sure that you and your bonsai can always go in the positive area. You never look to make it negative, never look to say, well, that's it, it's all over Red Rover, because there's so much more to be gained. So if you look up compartmentalisation with trees, it is incredible the way that they do it and why they do it, and just think about that greater good. If we all thought about greater good in bonsai, what a place it'd be. It's awesome. So anyway, let's move on. Deadwood on bonsai is brilliant. It's beautiful. I love it. Obviously, the type of tree that you're dealing with, the species, the variety, the hardness of the wood that remains is going to have a massive, massive impact on how long that wood's going to be sticking around for. And there's different types. You know, there's the dead branches, the gins, or there's the shari, the deadwood on the trunks, and it can be used in all manner of species. There's no right or wrong. There are definitely trees that are more suited to maintaining that deadwood for a long period. You know, some trees won't have it stick around very long at all. So it's a hard thing to build a design around something you know is only going to be there for a couple of years, as opposed to creating deadwood now for something that's going to be there forever. And you know, you've got to always keep in the back of your mind when you do create deadwood that you're looking at it on a scale of right now. That tree that you're dealing with, especially if it's a tree that you're developing and you're still growing, creating deadwood on something now that really isn't going to be at its finish point for, say, 15 years or whatever it is in the future, that tree's going to grow. The trunk's going to thicken, you know, the branch is going to thicken. The overall tree is going to become a lot more robust than what it is right now. So if you're working on branches now that maybe are, 3, 4, 5 millimeter thick, and they look like they're great gins or whatever, somewhere down the track that's going to look like a tiny twig on that tree, and it's not going to fit the design. It doesn't have to. I mean, that's the best part about deadwood. You can cut it off. If you've got a gin that you think, oh, I'm not sure, my approach is always to make that gin bigger and longer now than what you think it'll be in the future, because you can always work it back. You can always whittle it down and create something with it. But if you make it too short now, you just can't make it any longer in the future. So having a forward-facing mindset with the trees might mean that instead of ginning something now or making it dead, it might be, okay, the plan is for that to become deadwood in the future, but it needs to be a hell of a lot bigger than what it is now. So therefore, I'm going to do X, Y, Z and grow it out and allow it to thicken, whatever. And then I'll start working on making it the deadwood part of the tree. So you've got to plan for it. It's not something that you sort of snap your fingers and go, hey, there's some deadwood. That's fantastic. That's good. And when you first make the deadwood, assuming that it's not a branch that's died already, but on the basis that it is a live branch, and you say, hey, that's going to be a dead branch here, strip the bark off straight away. While it's still nice and wet, that bark will pop off nice and easy. If you leave it there, you say, okay, cut off all the foliage, let it all dry back, and then I'll start working it. What can happen is that bark sets like glue to the wood, and it's a nightmare to get off. You need scraping tools. You'll need a Dremel, something like that to remove the bark off it, and it's just so much harder than if you did it on the spot. Removing that bark, it can take 2 seconds or it can take half an hour somewhere in the future. So my plan is, my process is to always remove the bark immediately off a dead branch that I'm going to create, but then I let it go. I don't touch it. My process is for any deadwood that I'm going to be working on, including carving trunks or anything like that, is to allow the wood to go through one full year. So primarily it's summer that I'm interested in, which is why I'm talking about it at this point in the podcast as we sort of get into midway through spring and we start heading towards summer. If you've got deadwood and you're thinking, hey, I wouldn't mind doing some work on that, I would hold off. I would let it get through that summer, let the heat and constant watering and then reheating and watering and heating take all the sap out of that wood, let it dry out, and it becomes It becomes more brittle. I think that's the right word I'm looking for, is brittle. And therefore, after that process, the working on it becomes a hell of a lot easier. I find that for me, I can get a really natural look by using a pair of pliers, needle nose or just normal gin pliers, and giving that branch a bit of a break here and there. The process of just sort of snapping bits off gives a really natural feel to it. And the difference being that when that wood is wet, I find that if I use my pliers in the same manner and go to grab it and go to bend it and break it, it flexes, it moves, and you end up just tearing massive chunks off it. So what was a big piece of wood suddenly gets reduced to next to nothing. And you'll often see that sort of thing happen when you look at a demonstration. Someone's just made a fresh piece of deadwood and they get on it and they start tearing bits and pieces off it. A lot of it sort of comes off in big chunks. Whereas when it's a lot drier, using something like a trunk splitter or pliers, like I said, really allows you to carefully manipulate and break and get a real natural look to that wood. And the wood does take on a grayer, more aged appearance as well over time, which is lovely because not everyone's a fan of lime sulphur. Lime sulphur obviously is used to colour the wood nice and white, but it also is a preservative for the timber, as so far as it is built into the tree. If the wood's not going to survive a very long period, putting wood hardeners or lime sulphur or something like that onto that wood, it's a really short term measure. I found with our Australian natives too, some trees the wood hangs around for a very, very, very long time. Others, maybe not so much. So you can't put them all into one category and say, okay, well, every deciduous tree is going to have wood that doesn't last, or every native that has dead wood is going to survive forever. It just doesn't work that way. So you need to know the species that you're dealing with. But for me, that allowing one good year before getting in there and working that deadwood means that it's going to have a far more natural feel. And if you've made a shari, some deadwood on the trunk, you'll find that the bark will be trying to heal and roll over. So my process with that is that, let's say I make a strip that's, I don't know, maybe a centimetre wide, whatever it is. I followed the vein on the tree and I've stripped out some bark and it's about a centimetre wide. You can find that after sort of this healing period, this growing period we've got in spring, you might find that of the centimetre, maybe 3 or 4 mil has moved in, so it's really only a 6 mil sort of strip now. You've got to keep working that deadwood area and pushing it back out. I don't like to go to the extreme of where I'd like the deadwood to finish initially. I like the tree to sort of heal, compartmentalise, lock down the area that's been damaged, and then slowly and effectively increase the size of that deadwood that I've got on the trunk. So, it might start as a centimetre, come back to 6, then I'll open it to maybe 12 or 13 mil, and then it'll come back to maybe a 10 mil, so centimetre, and then I'll push it out again to maybe 15, 16 millimetres, something like that. So it's one of those things that I'll do over a period of time as part of the plan, the development for the tree, to increase the size of the deadwood slowly. So it's not done drastically. And if you're working on creating a hollow in a deciduous tree, for instance, like I said with my liquid amber, where I get that sort of roll in of the bark, when you cut, you may use something like a Dremel and sort of make a little cavity, so you hollow out the wood on the inside, which then the cambiums cannot roll over on. It needs a very strong, hard barrier for that cambium to roll over flat and heal. If you're trying to create like a bit of a cavity, you can get in there with some kind of mechanical carving tool. I find they're often the easiest, and open it up and create a hollow. So therefore that cambium is going to start to roll over and create a nice little hole. It is you don't always have to have perfect healed wounds on trees, because the tree, like I said in the earlier section, will sort out the problem. It'll compartmentalise and it'll move on from that. And these hollows can be, when they're done right, they can look beautiful on trees. And sometimes we get forced into it by major branch removal that maybe doesn't heal over. Maybe, you haven't looked at the wound management as thoroughly as what you should, so it starts to rot that wood out. It could be also that, you didn't apply sealant over the wound and therefore the water gets to it. It's not a waterproof membrane that's been applied. It could be where the cut is on the tree too. Often I find that, any cuts that are facing directly up where the rain's going to come directly down on top of them, they're more likely to get rot going through that section of the tree. So you can do a lot of different things, a lot of different techniques with deadwood on our trees. But as I said, the main thing for me is to let them get through a full cycle, go through the cold of winter, come out the other side, go through the extremes of heat, and I know that I'm going to be watering excessively during that summer period anyway, so the wood's going to be flushed out, it's going to be nice and dry, the sap's going to be gone from that wood. I'll start getting some natural cracking in the wood as well, where the fibres start to separate, which again for me is that's brilliant. That's one of the most natural, bonsai natural. I'm not sure they go together, but the most natural appearances of deadwood is when that wood starts to crack apart slightly. And I've seen lots of different techniques used and lots of different tools used to try and force that onto a tree, but when the tree starts to do that sort of thing naturally by itself, geez, it looks magnificent. So if you have created deadwood around about now, which is really common, don't push to get to the next point. Well, that's my advice anyway. Is I would wait, at least get through summer, let it dry out a little bit, and then see what happens and see how it's a more natural feel to the deadwood. Alright, so I thought I'd also spend some time talking about what's happening around the yard at the moment, because it is an important time of the year. We've had that initial burst of spring. We're sort of at the halfway point now during this really important growing period, and it's just, I suppose, a bit of a checklist for everybody to make sure that we're on track to achieving what we want to achieve. So by now, you should have had your second batch of fertiliser on the trees, well and truly. If you haven't, get on it, do it. It's super important at this time of the year. You might find with the more mature trees that they're starting to slow down a little bit anyway, because they've been pinched, pruned, whatever. So their foliage is starting to harden off and get ready for summer. Make sure that you get the fertiliser into them as well. I wouldn't be holding back. If you are looking at doing decandling on your black pines, and it's very, very important that we feed really, really well at this time. Also, my single flush pines, things like my radiatas, where I know I'm going to be doing very soon some candle cutting work on those. It's important to build up the tree's strength now, and that's through fertilising. One of the other things is, which doesn't get talked about a lot, is to watch the positioning in your yard. The sun is changing position all the time. It's getting higher and higher in the sky as we head towards summer. So you're shading different areas where the trees maybe were a few weeks ago, a month ago, in nice sunshine for parts of the day. Maybe that's starting to change now. Weather's getting definitely warmer. Watch the afternoon sun. Is the westerly sun going to become an issue for you? Especially if you haven't got the experience of having been through years and years and years. It might be something that you need to just keep an eye on and just have a look. Go out there at different times of the day. And if you can't be there, during the week, on the weekend, just go out there at 10, 12, 2, 4, and just have a look and see your bonsai, what's happening with them based on the position that they're in. Don't just assume because however long ago they were put in, wherever they were put in, that they're okay. It may be that you need to start shuffling things around, chase the sun a little bit. I wouldn't be hiding away from the sun at this point. I wouldn't be looking to protect things at all. It's not that warm. It's something that I really want to get full exposure for. The other thing, and I talk about this a lot, but it's particularly common during the spring period, is pest management. Just be on the front foot. Don't sit back. I get lots of photos sent to me. I have lots of conversations, and more often than not, it may not be something that you focus on or that you want to talk about or that you want to deal with, but pests make damage on your trees, and that it can be something that they can have an impact. So for me, I'm always on the front foot. I'm trying to fend them off as opposed to dealing with an issue. So my approach is very different from a responsive type mechanism. But I am also acutely aware that when I do get a weakened tree, that those pests will come in. So I look for it every single day, more than once a day. I walk around and my focus is on leaf damage, foliage damage. Is there something different with that tree? So that's definitely in the cards. The other one is the watering system update. Now, it's something that at this time of the year, when watering frequency definitely has increased and we're back on the charge, and I know that there's going to be a point coming up in the near future that watering system is going to be relied upon more and more, regardless of your thoughts on watering systems and the notion that hand watering is the only way. It is the best way, no doubt. But there's times when I cannot be here. There's times when you cannot be there for whatever reason, and you need to have something there to ensure the trees get what they need when they need it. And, I find for me, having a watering system that's cherry ripe, ready to go, is far better than sitting back going, "Oh, hang on a minute, that shower head that I've been using for the last 10 years suddenly has blown its stack, and that tree didn't get watered, and I've come home and now it's cooked and I've got an issue. May not be dead, might be set back, a long time, might get a lot of dieback on that tree, all because I wasn't on the front foot with it." So for me, I'm constantly testing and pressurizing and making sure that my lines are clear, that ants haven't got down the sprinkler heads and jammed them up, that I've got good flowing water, that the plastic that's aged, that's deteriorated over time has been replaced, and I'm ready to go. So at the drop of a hat, if I get a phone call and I've got to go to do whatever and it's 40 degrees outside, I know that I can safely say, yep, no problems, I can do that, because my watering system will be set up, geared up, ready to go, and it's not a problem. So it does take time. If you listen to the podcast at all, you'll know that there's massive sections on just purely watering system. But whatever it is that you do, don't just assume because it was okay last year or last time you used it that it's okay. It's something that I find, I might check it today and it's fine. Tomorrow there's a line that's blown. And it's something that you've always got to be on top of, because I cannot tell you the number of horror stories that I hear where things have gone terribly wrong with watering systems. And often it's one of these things, it's the maintenance of the system that really gets let down. So that's something that I'm definitely working through. A lot of other things that I'm doing around the yard at the moment with a hell of a lot of the trees is the first prune. For those trees in that cycle where I'm not pinching out the new growth, I'm doing that grow cut method. About now is a really good time to be walking around with a bucket and a pair of scissors and working through those trees and cutting back that long foliage, so the love gets shared out to weaker areas of the tree. Things like the bud conveyor come into my thought process far more now, where I'm looking also not only at the first prune of the trees, but some foliage removal as well. Not necessarily defoliation in the true sense of the word. It might be, a batch of leaves taken off, on the outside, just to allow some more light and air get into those inner areas. I don't necessarily focus on leaf size reduction, so it's not normally a problem for me, but I do look at that bud conveyor being a real source of focus for me at the moment, and that foliage removal around the extremities to allow that light and air to get into those inner areas is definitely a focus. So, and it might not be the first prune that you're doing. It could be the second, could be the third prune that you're on, depending on the tree. Some of them jump out of their skin. Some are a bit slower than others. So that's definitely what's going on around the yard at the moment, and it's primarily a focus for me, making sure that everything's going to be okay as I head towards the summer period, and make sure that the trees are in the best possible condition that they can be as we get there. So we've still got, like I said, we're still halfway through spring. So if you've been a bit slack on your fertilizing side of things, then you've still got an opportunity to correct that. It's still long enough. Don't say it's all over Red Rover, because it's definitely not. And just make sure that you're planning for it again to happen in another few weeks, like that run home in November heading towards December for the early summer period, for me is really crucial for a lot of work that we'll talk about closer to the time with my pines. But fertilising is definitely one of those things that is on my mind. And the more mature deciduous trees, for instance, where I've held back that fertiliser, as we head towards this latter part where the trees have well and truly settled, there's no more foliage growth happening. It's just the tree's going to start building some strength up. That's where fertilising between now and that summer period for me is super critical to make sure that I'm building the strength on the tree. So don't miss the opportunity, and make sure that you get to spend the time with the trees. Like I said, pest management is one of those ones that really you can cross your fingers and hope that things are working, and maybe take preventative steps, but it's crucial to get up close and personal with the trees and have a look. Anyway, hopefully that helps and gives you just some, like I said, some kind of a checklist for yourself around the yard. There's plenty more to be doing, and it's a lovely time to spend with your trees. If this pruning at this time of the year is very exciting, because it's all new, it's all fresh, it's easy, it's not hard work. You're making decisions left, right, and centre, and don't get bogged down with it. Make sure that you're doing something rather than nothing. That's the motto at this time of the year. Cutting something too short or cutting something off and going, oh, maybe I shouldn't have, is far better than just leaving it get longer and longer and longer and doing nothing, because it's going to get thicker, it's going to get coarser, and too long, too thick, too coarse, get rid of it. So make sure that you are on top of things. Thank you for your company. As always, I will see you, or you will hear me next week in the episode, next week's episode 41 for the year of season 7 of the podcast. So we're racketing along, but we're getting close now towards the last part of spring. So let's just make sure that we're on top of things, and watering your trees should be something that you're almost doing on a daily basis now, or well and truly daily, if not two times a day. So thank you for listening in. I love the company as always, and I do appreciate the support that I get through the sponsors of the podcast. It means the world to me. So thank you. Until next time, happy bonsai.